First this morning, former Deputy Prime Minister Lord Prescott tells this programme that Labour bigwigs, including his former boss Tony Blair, should stop abusing those supporters who are backing the left-winger Jeremy Corbyn in the Labour leadership contest. And Lord Prescott is here. And calm down. That's your message to your party, is it?
It certainly is. There's too much kind of abuse going on, discussing personalities, not enough about policy. And this election is not due to the MPs. They are the ones that take part, but on one member, one vote. It's a party decision. They make the decision. And to abuse them, as Tony Blair did, for example, and others are doing, is to suggest if you voted for Jeremy, you need to have an operation.
Heart
transplant. That's such abuse. It's unacceptable. Let's get down to policies. Let's get down to how we're different to the Tories instead of looking as if there's not a great deal of difference between us. That's what the party wants to know from candidates. What are your policies?
But maybe the abuse is justified, they might say, because if Jeremy Corbyn becomes leader of your party, then the view is that your party will be out of power for years,
well,
decades.
I don't know. That's judgments being made by these various advisors, followed by commentators.
Well, Tony Blair said we don't need 4 more election defeats to know what happens if you have a left-wing leader of the Labour Party.
Well, even Tony Blair's not godlike. He can't know. He can give a judgment. I can give a judgment. But at the end of the day, the judgment belongs to the party. So let them decide who they want as leader. Personally, I did support Jeremy to go on the list, though I don't have a vote. I'm not a member of Parliament now. But I wanted to widen the debate. And we've certainly got a wide debate now. Liz is on the right, Jeremy on the left, the other 2 candidates to be discussing. Well, that's a real choice. I also said in the deputy leadership, we should widen that to Stella Creasy. So we get a wider debate because it's the people's debate. The ordinary members, they make the decision. It's called one member, one vote. I fought all my life for that. Let's get down to trusting the electorate, getting them to make a decision, but do give them an example. So talk about policies, not personalities, and calm down. The press are making it very heated. They like that kind of thing. Polls. I thought polls got discredited in the last election. The same people now who told us everything wrong in the last election are now telling us who's going to win. How do they know? Discuss to the same people who gave them the wrong information on the election? Come on, calm down, have a discussion.
Are you a moron for wanting Jeremy Corbyn on the ballot?
It's amazing, isn't it? Some guy comes on television, right? This McTernan, his name.
John McTernan.
He wasn't influential in Blair's. I knew he was influential in the Blair administration. He wasn't. He goes to Australia and advises the Australian Prime Minister who loses the election. He's then sent up to Scotland where we lose it again. And he calls others morons. That's an abuse. Just talk about policies. That's what people want. Calm down. Let us debate the real issues about hospitals, about the economy, about gender balance, which Yvette Cooper was talking about this morning.
The real issues are being debated. We were one of the programmes that had, hustings with the 4 candidates. Policies were debated. Jeremy Corbyn, as you said, clearly on the left wing. And that's why some people are worried in case he becomes leader, then you will be out of power.
Well, first of all, there's a wider choice. Even on the hustings you've got, there's clearly a wider choice, even on the definition of austerity. But, perhaps Jeremy's going to have to spell out what the alternative with that, not just give the reaction. And all the others are giving reactions in these hustings. In the minute you give them, or 2 minutes, you don't have time to discuss the policy.
We had an hour and 45, to be fair.
But the total amount, when it comes down to the questions, as I do, it's to be a quick response. Let them get out amongst the people now in the next 2 months and debate the issues of what their policies are, where they stand. And that's why I think Jeremy is being popular. He's a man who actually says, this is, I believe, I'm against austerity, I'm for this. Fine, but spell out what you would do as an alternative. That's what policy is about. That's what leaders have to do. And it's time for them to spell it out.
Why don't you think Jeremy Corbyn should be leader?
I don't think he would be elected by the party, and I also think I have to make a choice. I'm a member of the party like everybody else. I've made my choice. I believe it's Andy, the man that should be elected as the leader.
And why him over Jeremy Corbyn?
Well, interesting, that's a good point. What came to my mind in it? He is doing what I always call traditional values in a modern setting. I think Tony Blair this weekend was talking in more elegant words than that, but it means traditional values in a modern setting. So when we have a health service, it was the Labour Party that created the health service, but Andy's seen beyond that. Health service has got to extend from when we brought it in after the war to have social care. A lot of people are living longer. The health service has been more successful in enabling people to live longer. And he has now taken that traditional value, put it into social care. Then the question comes, that's a hell of a lot more money than the extra money they promised for health. How do you pay for it? Then it raises questions about what is the size of the state? What is our position on the economy? Defend our position instead of running away from it, and what happened in 2008. So that's what I want them to answer, address themselves to that. And the party want to hear that. Jeremy, who's speaking on some popular causes from the party, because they want to hear us to be against Tories, against austerity. Of course they do. I don't think they'll vote for that. They'll want a leader who has to balance this party, as we had to do under Tony Blair and myself. When we didn't come in as right-wing or left-wing. We came with alternative policies, what was wrong with the Tories, and the people accepted it.
If Jeremy Corbyn does become leader of your party, what will that mean for Labour?
Well, it means the people have made a decision. I don't think they will, but what it would mean is the policies he's expounding, he would then have to get out and implement. When you say you're against austerity, what does that mean? Does it mean we have a bigger tax level?
Well, that's what he says, yeah. Higher taxes, higher public spending.
Fine, well, at least that's a response. No doubt others will say, look, what is the level of the tax? Here's the Tories coming in with their reforms. They don't want to go to 50p tax. I happen to think that would be right if you're talking about carrying the difficulties in economic and socially we've got at the moment. But at least he's giving his view. Then you want to drill down to say, what does that mean? Would you go to 56, 60%? What does it mean about social care? What does it mean about defence expenditure? Here's the government on their reforms, on welfare as we've seen, or on defence expenditure. They want to put more in defence. They have other issues about nuclear, which is a big issue, wanting billions of pounds to be spent. Let's start that debate.
Have you looked on Andy Burnham's Facebook page recently?
No.
Right. There are a lot of people who were going to vote for him, Labour Party supporters through and through, who say that after last week saying he was going to oppose the government when it came to cutting tax credits, and this week abstaining, cannot vote for him any longer because he changed his position.
That's a reasonable point, Ray. You've got to find out why that should be. We started off badly by saying that we wouldn't oppose the Tories' welfare bill. Our party couldn't accept that, and we got into a silly situation.
Well, that's what Andy Burnham said last week, and then within 7 days...
let's come to it. Who made the decision? Harriet made the decision on her own.
Andy Burnham can make his own decisions. He could have resigned from the shadow cabinet.
Yeah, that might be your... Can you let me have my answer? If Harman did that, she did wrongly, in my view, candidates can either find a halfway house to it or attack her and say she's wrong and vote on second reading. You do have to keep this party together, and they are the difficulties that candidates had and need to explain. Whereas you now say on his Facebook, he said, I will oppose the issues when they come on the floor. That is when the bill becomes to debated in September. At the moment, to keep that aspect of party unity, that's what Andy did and the other candidates outside Jeremy. But then you've got to ask why. Any leader has to combine the party. He has to lead. Sometimes they're difficult decisions. Sometimes a big question. But now is the time to question. When you still believe that after the explanation, make your decision on the vote.
What difference would it have made if Ed Miliband has stayed on as leader after the general election debate to this contest?
He was absolutely wrong, no doubt, to resign so quickly.
What difference would it have made?
If he'd have
stayed on after the election, while this contest was going on.
Well, first of all, would have got the first reaction to the kind of Tory reforms at the moment within the normal framework. Candidates are now forced to say, do you accept what we're not to oppose welfare? That we would have got rid of. We'd have got over the bitterness and the bad feeling that comes from a general election on such a defeat. He should have carried that through for us. Let's face it. I've been involved in strikes and all sorts. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But when you're a leader, you stay there and carry it through that process. Callaghan did that. There are other leaders, and the Tory leader...
What practical difference would it have made to in terms of the candidates that we now see running to be leader of Labour?
Well, the practical one, I don't suppose for a second either pursued the recommendation not to oppose the welfare bill. Or
but would we have seen a wider field of candidates, potentially?
You might have done, but I think... Listen, I've fought in 8 deputy leaders and deputy elections that have gone on in this party. I've been in 3 of them as candidates. It might have made a difference. One difference at the moment, can't be short of candidates. We've got more candidates who are actually in the election, and people on the side like Chucker and Tristan Hon can't get enough votes, but telling us how we should vote at the moment. Not short of candidates, short of policies, short of ideas, short of a vision, what Labour stands for.
You told David Miliband to shut up from the sidelines. You told Alistair Campbell a sort of similar thing, to stop sticking his nose in terms of this contest. You now are making your intervention.
I don't mind them coming in. What did Alistair say? Alistair says, if you don't perform like that, I'm going to get rid of you. There's some of them are even talking to get rid of whoever's elected. That's wrong, in my view. I've expressed that view. Who was the other guy?
David Miliband.
David Miliband. God blimey. He said he's been making 4 kind of little interventions each time. Some believe he's gearing himself to come in for the next election that those on the right are organising to get rid of Jeremy if he's elected. Look, stay out of it. You've made your choice. You had your chance. I think that business, keep out of the way. I assume he's still a Labour Party member, so he's entitled to vote. But don't give her lectures, particularly when you're coming from the positions you are in.
And Harriet Harman as interim leader, should she be doing more or less?
I think she's done enough, quite frankly. I think Harriet did very well taking over in a difficult situation that Miliband placed her in, and she did quite well. But then she went beyond what I believe is authority. She now said that Labour will not oppose, even on an amendment, the welfare bill. That's beyond her authority, quite frankly, and put every one of the candidates in a difficult position, which you're pointing out now, the words they use looks a bit hypocritical. I don't believe it. I believe Andy's the best guy. He has opposed it. He looks for changes. But that's for members of the Parliament to decide. And I'm glad also that Liz is in. Liz, I don't agree with what she said, but she's spunky, she gets the job, she challenges the thinking. Jeremy's on the other side.
Is it not time for a woman to lead Labour?
Well, there has been a leader. Margaret Beckett was the leader at one stage, acting leader she was. I'm all for more women being involved in it. We supported it constantly when all those proposals came forward. But in regard to leaders and deputy leadership, we have not made that agenda balance. Though I hear the voices are beginning raised against on that should be a debate. But for them now to say that it should be agenda balance, I just think it should be the 2 best people to lead us. It could be 2 men, it could be 2 women, but either way, don't let's fix it on gender.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.